Okay, so we're going to try to squeeze in another 10-15 minutes on working on the functionality here for the payments, and just last few minutes I kind of went through and made some changes to the layout like I discussed, where this top row has to do with costs in the pool, the second row has to do with maintenance, and the third row has to do with payments. Added some distinct buttons, and these buttons here have associated classes with them. So if we look over in the source, we've got a pay maintenance class on a link that looks like this button right here. And so what we want to do is on this, we want to trigger it to do a dialog that prompts up, asks to make a payment, is going to try to provide what it thinks the last maintenance date is based on this time, and take this amount, subtract it from the pool if the pool exists. So let's go ahead and get started on that. And I might not be able to finish this one up on a recording. We'll see how it goes. So we know this functionality looks more or less the same, and we just want to change it based on whether it is maintenance or payment. So I might try to write the same function, just pass a boolean or some kind of string field to indicate which one it is. And then, because all we're really doing is we're just saying, find this value, add this to the months, find this, subtract this from there. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we want to do is we're going to more or less just look at the same kind of setup here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and copy and paste one. So let's go ahead and do this big payment. Go ahead and we're going to change this. We're going to add a boolean or a string. Well, let's call it string. We'll say payment. And we need to add a new function. We'll call it on payment. On pay. Let's call it on pay. We'll say on pay. Okay, so see TypeScript's complaining because there's no on pay. Usually I would try to order this in some way, shape, or form, but I'm just going to do it right here to make it clean. So here we know we're going to have an event. So I'm just going to actually copy this. And we know beyond that we're going to want to have another string passed to this thing. Actually, I think we can go even further because we want to say that we want to take this as payment, or so let's go ahead and try to get real fast and get started. So let's go ahead and define our types. Data dot is it credit pool? Right. So this is where Visual Studio Code is nice. It helps you kind of remember what fields you have and what's available. So we're going to go ahead and just give an alias for this ships pool because that's what we want to do. Then what we need to do is we need to figure out what the payment amount is. Let's do let payment amount equal, and this is where we can do a nice ternary string operator, where basically what we want to do is we want to say if basically payment type is equal to payment, we're going to go ahead and set payment amount to be equal to this dot data payment amount. Otherwise, we're going to assume it's just one of these two. So if somebody went back and changed this, we would have some problems here. So this problem maybe should be changed slightly different to a case statement or so forth. But I think for right now we're okay. So we have this payment amount, we have this pool. Let's go ahead and just do a real simple conditional check. I want to say if the payment amount is greater than the ship pool, then we know we want to tell the user we can't do this. So we can look for the UI, notifications. Notifications may not exist, so we put a question mark, and let's go ahead and just give this an error. And we want to localize this, but for right now I'm just going to drop this in here. We can try to clean that up later because I want to try to get this done fast. Not enough in the pool for amount for great. And this is, and then we'd want to return to let the code not do anything else, so we're just trying to halt if this is the case. So let's go ahead and test this out and see if this works. So I've only done on the ship's payment button, so we can go ahead and make it work also for the maintenance payment. I can't even remember what I called it. Pay maintenance. There. So let's crack this open. Our ship's pool right now is, make this small. Let's make this 20. Our payment amount is 10,000. Let's make this 5. Let's just see if this works. So this should complain. Let me refresh this. Great. So, oh, I got to fix something there. Okay, so I didn't have that show up right properly, but this is at least showing us that there's not enough money in there to make that payment. We make this payment, it should go ahead and work. Nope, this is not working as well. Okay, great. So we have some code issues, so we need to figure that out. So this is where Stas's suggestion of a debugger would be great, and I should maybe actually figure that out and enable that. So maybe that's actually what I'll do next, is I'll go ahead and stop at this point, take a look at that debugger and figure it out. Now, maybe actually I'll be frantic. Let's just go ahead. And so this is showing this as an object, which is confusing to me. So great. So if we just did this the dirty way, the slow, lazy, dirty way, we would just log this. But this is definitely 100% where having a debugger is way better, because you could just inspect it right there on the type. Doing the log will help us at least see what's going on inside of there. So I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to go ahead and crack this open. Let's open up the log, clear out the log, and we'll go over here. I'm going to hit this button. Okay, so it's not picking up my changes. So what am I got going wrong here? Okay, this is also a good issue. Nope, so we're building, we're updating the code. Okay, let me go ahead and take a look. So on pay, or make payment, or payment, maintenance, maintenance, payment. It's one of these two types. Console log. Okay, so maybe the code just wasn't built at that point. Okay, this time it worked. Okay, so maybe it looks like I am, it's getting the entire click inside of there. So maybe part of this is issues with, it's associating the event with this and not passing the string. So one thing maybe that I'm not sure on is trying to, and I haven't done this before, is trying to pass a parameter over to binding on the jQuery click event. This might be something that jQuery's, that should work, but let me see if I can figure this out. Let's go ahead and do a quick search. So we just look for jQuery bind arguments. Yeah, so bind might not let us do this. Let's see. We can give bind, and then you're giving it a function. Okay, so part of it might be, yep, okay, that might be part of my issue, is trying to put this on there, is that I need to change how I am passing arguments into this. Okay, let me go ahead and we'll just do this real dirty, and then we'll figure out the change. So we're going to abstract this in a real ugly way, but we'll go ahead and make this change. So we're just going to call this on payment. We'll take this out. We'll do this on maintenance. We'll go ahead and add these new functions here. And this is simply going to be a wrapper for the other function, which is not nearly a good idea, but in the sense of just wanting to get this done, let's just do this. So what we're just going to say is we're going to return on pay, we'll pass it the event, and here we will pass it payment. this should just go ahead. Well, this is basically associating this function with there. Go ahead and call it. This is one area, these kind of notion of how to pass functions as arguments is something that I'm always not the best at. So that's showing up here. So this time now we see at least the right string. We'll see the right word there. We see the right pull. It's going payment. It's able to think that the amount's good enough. If we made this bigger, this should hopefully fail for us. Great. Okay, great. All right, so that's at least working in some way, shape, or form. Let's just keep going. Okay, so now if we have the amount in there, we know what we want to do is we want to update the amount by the payment. So here we can go ahead and say ship pool. We're going to go ahead and subtract that payment amount from here. And what we need to do is we need to find the appropriate next date. Now let's just do a first pass where we're going to go ahead and update the date by the inferred months, but that's probably not correct, right? We're probably going to pop up and say, this is what I think the next date should be, but allow the user to set the date because maybe they actually do the maintenance earlier than the 6-month schedule or whatever. And so, I mean, they could always go back and just make that change manually, but we'll see what we can do. The other nice thing that we want to do later is put in hooks into the calendar system, which then you have a little calendar pop up and you can automatically feed that. So let's go ahead and try this. So we'll go ahead and make the payment amount this dollar amount, and let's just go ahead and say let last date equal, it's going to be the same thing as right here, but instead of doing the cost, we're going to set it to be the dates. But actually, we need to do a little bit more than this because of last year, because there's 3 fields. I'm not sure the best way of doing ternary fields or setting up multiple fields inside of JavaScript. So let's go ahead and just say we're going to set last year equal to, let's just go ahead and we're going to assume it's payment to start. And change if maintenance. So it's going to say last year is going to equal to this dot after data dot last payment dot year. Actually, because this is a nested object, actually no, I'm going to change my mind. Let's just do it this way. Let's make this last pay date. Cool. And now we'll actually just use this whole thing. But I forgot we can set this as an object. Okay, so now we have this last pay date here. Let's go ahead and set up months schedule. And we're just going to do the same thing here. Payment months, otherwise it's going to be maintenance months. Okay, so this is how far ahead we want to push. So let's just go ahead and try to make this work in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so now we know we've updated the payment, the ship's pool amount by the payment. Now let's just go ahead and guess the next date. So we want to go ahead and say let month equal last pay date dot month. Nope, that's actually not what we're doing. Let's just go ahead and make a date. And we can pass it the year. Last pay date year. Last pay date dot month. And again, this is 0 based, so we want to subtract 1, but we're just going to show it with the 1 to make it easier. Last pay date dot date. Okay, so now we've constructed a date object that we can work with. So we're going to say date object dot set month, and then we're going to say date object dot get month plus month schedule. Okay, so this will go ahead and update the month. So let's go ahead and give this a go. Now what we need to go ahead and do is update these objects here. So we need the keys associated with this. We could issue a conditional update statement, or we can go ahead and set the keys and build what object. Let's just go ahead and issue a conditional update statement. So say if payment type equals payment, this is going to be our update. Else this. Let's go ahead and make this a little better. I will leave it at this else. Let's add one comment here. If a new payment type is added, this function needs to be refactored. So this might have been better as a Boolean, is payment, and then false implies maintenance, so we don't have to worry about this issue of somebody going and adding another type, but so be it. Okay, so then we want to go ahead and update the actor. So this actor.update, we need to go through and we're going to pass it map of data and another map, and then we know we can pass in the appropriate fields. So I'll indent this a bit so we know that the payment amount should be, sorry, not the payment amount, the ship pool is going to be equal to ship pool. Why is this complaining here? I need to do it like this. Let's see, maybe we'll denote. Let's just go ahead and change this to be more flat, which would be an effect of doing it like this. Yeah, that seemed to work. Okay, I'm doing something wrong there, but I'm not going to figure it out right now. Okay, now we know we need to know that we want to do last payment. Okay, because we're in a string, it's not going to figure it out here. And this is going to be equal date object.get year. I'm not sure if get full year is the right, but we'll test it out and we'll see what happens. Data.last payment.month. And we know here what we want to do is add one. So let's go ahead and give this a test. Oh, this is the day of the week. Okay, so that answers my earlier question that I messed up my naming. So maybe I'll go ahead and fix that as well. So this is, we're just going to try and go ahead and update these values and see what happens. Again, this is just kind of a very iterative process. So let's go ahead and head back over here. See, we need our maintenance cost, our payment amount to be less than this. So let's go ahead and see. So what we want to see, let's start with the case we assume will work, is that we'll subtract $50 from the credit pool. So it'll be 150, and that this will go to 3,200, 55. Let's just see. Fingers crossed. Let me refresh the browser too. I'm not sure if I refreshed it properly. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so that did not work in the way that we wanted, right? So the credit pool didn't be updated, but we saw something happen to the date. So that's kind of good, I guess. So this is not okay. So that's incrementing the date by a month, so that's good. The 2 is not working though. Okay, great. So okay, there it looks like it is. Let's see. Okay, let's do some tests. Okay, so some of this is working, so that's always nice to see. Okay, so that button is just not picking up. Okay, there you go. So it's a little slow. Oh, one issue might be that it might need to await. So if there's an asynchronous function and you call await, you might want to make sure that you're waiting on it, but this is not an async function, so it shouldn't be needed. Let's see here. So the ship pool is not being updated, or we're not subtracting it. So here was our credit pool. We're getting our payment amount. Oh, no, we're setting the payment amount to this. Okay. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and begin. It could be good to have a debugger, but let's just go ahead and log some things here. So let's just say console.log. I'm going to say just ship pool. So this is what we're expecting the amount of money to be for the ship. Oh, that's why. I've just now changed it to be ship pool instead of credit pool. So if you go back, and I've just been overwriting this value, and if you go back and you look at the token, there'll be a new field put in there, which is garbage, right? Because I've been just adding this field and not using it at all. So that's part of the issue there. Okay, great. Helps to have the right things, but this is where it's not checking the type because I'm just passing in a string. So I should have not tried to cram it around and followed type script there. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Oh, let's refresh. Sometimes also, because of this build process, also a few times the build process is a little bit slow, and you'll see that it misses. Yay, yay. Okay, great. So we got something working, right? So it goes down to 0, and it's not enough money to pay, so everyone's happy. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what else we can do here. Oh, sorry, phone's buzzing. Okay, so this is actually not too bad. So we could go ahead and try to drop that in there, but probably the first step will be, should I see if I can fix this? This is where a good commit point is at as well. Get status, see what you've got, make sure your changes are right, and I'm going to go ahead and say payment partially working. Make some changes, you want to quickly roll back. This is where having a rollback point is great. Let's just see. So if I go ahead and change this to be a map of a map, let's just say I'm going to say data equals this. Put this inside of there, and we can try to get rid of this. It's not looking as good. Oh, because we might want to have the nested objects inside of there. Let's see. It's not departial. So if let's see, what if we do this? This is where TypeScript is nice. It's telling you you've messed up. This is kind of nice, actually. So if we go this way, we're kind of having, it's a little maybe over excessively tabbed in, but it makes it maybe potentially a little bit easier to look at for folks. Okay, so that's not bad. And then what we can do will be nice in this way is that we can more or less use the same code block, and we can just go ahead and change this to be last maintenance. And everyone should be happy. Okay, let's give us some money. Let's go for 1,000. Let's just assume this costs 10, and let's go ahead and do this. Great, so this is go ahead and working. Okay, great, so this is not ideal. What we'd like is maybe a prompt to jump up to ask what is the maintenance state that we want, but this might be good enough to go ahead and set that up, or it just is going to go ahead and jump that up. Okay, let's go ahead and commit this, and we'll maybe stop here, and then we'll look at maybe doing a dialog where we ask for the last maintenance date, or the next date to set as a prompt. But this is works better than I was expecting it to work. Okay.